Hey Krishna, welcome all of you for today's Hare Krishna, welcome all of you for today's reading session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Welcome all of you once again for today's reading session. We shall continue to read from the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya by His Divine Grace Vishwaguru Abhay Charana Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Chapter 23, Why Study the Vedanta Sutra? We are continuing from where we left yesterday. Conditioned souls, beginning from Brahma, the engineer of this particular universe, down to an insignificant ant, are all creating something, but none of them are independent of the Supreme Lord. The materialist wrongly thinks that there is no creator outside his own good self, and this is called Maya or illusion. Due to his poor fund of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses. Thus, he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape, independent of a conscious background. This is refuted by Srila Vyasadeva in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. As stated before, Vyasadeva is a liberated soul, and he compiled this book of authority after attaining spiritual perfection. Since the complete whole, or the absolute truth, is the source of everything, nothing is independent of him. Everything exists within the body of the absolute truth. Any action or reaction of a part of a body becomes a cognizable fact to the embodied whole. Similarly, if the creation abides in the body of the absolute truth, then nothing is unknown to the absolute, directly or indirectly. In the Shruti mantra, it is stated that the absolute whole or Brahman is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him, everything is maintained by him, and at the end, everything enters into him again. That is the law of nature. This is also confirmed in the Smriti mantra. There it is said that at the beginning of Brahma's millennium, the source from which everything emanates is the absolute truth or Brahman, and at the end of that millennium, the reservoir into which everything enters is that same absolute truth. Material scientists haphazardly take it for granted that the ultimate source of this planetary system is the sun, but they are unable to explain the source of the sun. In Vedic literatures, the ultimate source is explained. Brahma is the creator of this universe, but because he had to meditate in order to receive the inspiration for such a creation, he is not the ultimate creator. As stated in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma was taught Vedic knowledge by the personality of Godhead. In the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the Supreme Lord inspired a secondary creator, Brahma, and enabled him to carry out his creative functions. In this way, the Supreme Lord is the supervising engineer. The real mind behind all creative agents is the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna personally admits that it is he only who superintends the creative energy or Prakriti, the sum total of matter. Thus, Sri Vyasadeva neither worships Brahma nor the sun, but the Supreme Lord, who guides both Brahma and the sun in their creative activities. The Sanskrit words Abhignya and Swarat, appearing in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, are significant. These two words distinguish the Lord from all other living entities. No living entity other than the Supreme Being, the absolute personality of Godhead, is either Abhignya or Swarat. That is, none of them are either fully cognizant or fully independent. Everyone has to learn from his superior about knowledge. Even Brahma, who is the first living being within this material world, has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord and take help from him in order to create. If Brahma or the sun cannot create anything without acquiring knowledge from a superior, then what is the situation with the material scientists who are fully dependent on so many things? Modern scientists like Jagadish Chandra Bose, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, etc., may be very boastful of their respective creative energies, but all were dependent on the Supreme Lord for so many things. After all, the highly intelligent brains of these gentlemen were certainly not products of any human being. The brain is created by another agent. If brains like those of Einstein or Newton should have been manufactured by a, could have been manufactured by a human being, then mankind would produce many such brains instead of eulogizing their passing. If such scientists cannot even manufacture such brains, what to speak of foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord? Even the Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves and believe that they have become the Lord themselves are not Abhignya or Swarat, fully cognizant or fully independent. The Mayavadi monists undergo a severe process of austerity and penance to acquire knowledge of becoming one with the Lord, but ultimately they become dependent on some rich follower who supplies them with requisite paraphernalia to construct great monasteries and temples. Atheists like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe penances before they could flout the authority of the Lord. But ultimately, they were so helpless that they could not save themselves when the Lord appeared before them as cruel death. This is also applicable to the modern atheists who dare flout the authority of the Lord. Such atheists will be dealt the same awards as were given in the past to great atheists like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu. History repeats itself, and what was occurring in the past will recur again and again when there is necessity. Whenever the authority of the Lord is neglected, the penalties dealt by the laws of nature are always there. That the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, is all perfect is confirmed in all Shruti mantras. It is said in the Shruti mantras that the all perfect Lord glanced over matter and thus created all living beings. The living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord, and He impregnates the vast material nature with the seeds of the spiritual sparks. Thus, the creative energies are set in motion for so many wonderful creations. When one atheist argued that God is no more expert than the manufacturer of a subtle watch which has so many delicate parts, we had to reply that God is a great mechanic than the watchmaker because he simply creates one machine in male and female forms, and the male and female forms go on producing innumerable similar machines without the further attention of God. If a man could manufacture a set of machines capable of producing other machines without the man giving the matter any further attention, then a man could be said to equal the intelligence of God. Of course, this is not possible. Each and every one of man's imperfect machines has to be handled individually by a mechanic. Because no one can be equal in intelligence to God. Another name for God is Asamordva, which indicates that no one is equal to or greater than him. Everyone has his intellectual equal and superior, and no one can claim that he has neither. However, this is not the case with the Lord. The Shruti mantras indicate that before the creation of the material universe, the Lord was existing and he was master of everyone. It was the Lord who instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge. That personality of Godhead has to be obeyed in all respects. Anyone who wants to become freed from material entanglement must surrender unto him, and this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Unless one surrenders unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, it is certain that one will be bewildered, even if he happens to be a great mind. Only when great minds surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva and know fully that Vasudeva is the cause of all causes, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 19, can they become Mahatmas or truly broad minded. However, such broad minded Mahatmas are rarely seen. Only they, however, can understand the Supreme Lord as the absolute personality of Godhead, the primeval cause of all creations. He is Parama, ultimate truth, because all other truths are dependent on him. Because he is the source of all knowledge, he is omniscient. There is no illusion for him as there is for the relative knower. Such, sorry, some Mayavadi scholars argue that Srimad Bhagavatam was not compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, and some suggest that the book is a modern creation written by someone named Vopadeva. In order to refute this meaningless argument, Srila Sridhar Swami points out that there are many of the oldest Puranas which make reference to the Srimad Bhagavatam. The first shloka or verse of Srimad Bhagavatam begins with a Gayatri mantra, and there is reference to this in the Matsya Purana, the oldest Purana, with reference to the context of Gayatri mantra in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In this Purana, it is said, that which contains many narrations of spiritual instruction begins with the Gayatri mantra and also contains the history of Vritrasura, is known as the Srimad Bhagavatam. Whoever makes a gift of this great book on a full moon day attains to the highest perfection of life and goes back to Godhead. There is also reference to Srimad Bhagavatam in other Puranas, which even indicate that the work consists of 12 cantos and 18,000 shlokas. In Padma Purana also there is reference about the Srimad Bhagavatam during a conversation between Gautama and Maharaj Ambarisha. Maharaj Ambarisha was advised to read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly if he at all desired liberation from material bondage. Under these circumstances, there is no doubt regarding the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. For the past 500 years, many scholars have made elaborate commentaries upon Srimad Bhagavatam and have displayed unique scholarship. The serious student will do well to attempt to go through them in order to more happily relish the transcendental messages of the Bhagavatam. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically deals with original and pure sex psychology, Adi Rasa, devoid of all mundane inebriety. The entire material world turns due to the basic principle of sex life. In modern human civilization, sex is the central point of all activities. Indeed, wherever we turn our face, we see sex life prominent. Consequently, sex life is not unreal. Its true reality is experienced in the spiritual world. Material sex is but a perverted reflection of the original. The original is found in the absolute truth. This validates the fact that the absolute truth is personal, for the absolute truth cannot be impersonal and have a sex. and have a sense of pure sex life. The impersonal monist philosophy gives an indirect impetus to abominable mundane sex because it overly stresses the impersonality of the absolute truth. The result is that men who lack knowledge have accepted the perverted material sex life as all in all because they have no information of the actual spiritual form of sex. There is a distinction between sex in the diseased condition of material life and sex in the spiritual existence. Srimad Bhagavatam gradually elevates the unbiased reader to the highest perfectional stage of transcendence, above the three modes of material activities, fruitive actions, speculative philosophy, and above worship of functional deities indicated in the Vedas. Srimad Bhagavatam is the embodiment of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and is therefore situated in a position superior to other Vedic literatures. Religion includes four primary subjects: 1. Pious activities, 2. Economic development, 3. Satisfaction of the senses, and 4. Liberation from material bondage. Religious life is distinguished from the irreligious life of barbarism. Indeed, it may be said that human life actually begins with religion. The four principles of animal life, eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, are common both to the animals and human beings. But religion is the special concern of human beings. Since human life is no better than animal life without religion, in real human society there is some form of religion aiming at self realization and referring to one's eternal relationship with God. In the lower stage of human civilization, there is always competition between men in their attempt to dominate material nature. In other words, there is continuous rivalry in an attempt to satisfy the senses. Thus, driven by sense gratificatory consciousness, men enact religious rituals. Thus, pious activities and religious functions are performed with an aim to acquire some material gain, and if such material gain is obtainable in another way, this so called religion is neglected. This can be seen in modern human civilization. Since the economic desires, sorry, since the economic desires of the people appear to be fulfilled in another way, no one is interested in religion now. No one is interested in religion now. The churches, mosques, and temples are practically vacant, for people are more interested in factories, shops, and cinemas. Thus, they have deserted the religious places erected by their forefathers. This is evidence that religion is generally performed for the sake of economic development, and economic development is required for sense gratification. When one is baffled in his attempt to attain sense gratification, he takes to the cause of salvation in order to become one with the Supreme Whole. All these activities arise with the same aim in view: sense gratification. In the Vedas, the four primary subjects mentioned above are prescribed in a regulative way so that there will not be undue competition for sense gratification. However, Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all the sense gratificatory activities of the material world. It is a pure transcendental literature, understandable by the devotees of the Lord who are above competition in sense gratification. In the material world, there is keen competition between animals, men, communities, and even nations in an attempt to gratify the senses. But the devotees of the Lord are above all this. Devotees have no need to compete with materialists because they are on the path back to Godhead, back home, where everything is eternal, full and blissful. Such transcendentalists are 100% non-envious and are therefore pure in heart. Because everyone in the material world is envious, there is competition. The devotees of the Lord are not only free from all material envy, but they are also kind to everyone in an attempt to establish a competition-less society with God in the center. The socialist's idea of a society devoid of competition is artificial because even in the socialist states there is competition for power. It is a fact that the principle of sense gratification is the basic principle of materialistic life, and this can be realized either from reading the Vedas or simply from observing common human activities. The Vedas recommend fruitive activities by which people can advance to higher planets, and they also recommend worship of the various demigods for the purpose of attaining their planets. Ultimately, the Vedas recommend activities by which one can reach the absolute truth and realize his impersonal feature in order to become one with him. However, the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the last word. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma or the Supersoul, and above that is the Supreme Personality. Srimad Bhagavatam gives information about the personal qualities of the Absolute Truth, qualities which are beyond the impersonal aspect. Topics concerning these qualities are greater than topics of impersonal philosophical speculation. Consequently, Srimad Bhagavatam is given higher status than the Jnana-kanda portions of the Vedas. Srimad Bhagavatam is also greater than the Karma Kanda and Upasana Kanda portions as well because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the divine son of Vasudeva. The Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas is fraught with competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification, and this competition is also seen in the Jnana Kanda and Upasana Kanda portions. Srimad Bhagavatam is above all of these because it aims only at the supreme truth, the substance or root of all categories. In other words, from Srimad Bhagavatam we can know the substance as well as the relativities in their true sense and perspective. The substance is the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, and the relativities are the different forms of energy which emanate from Him. Since the living entities are also related to his energies, there is nothing really different from the substance. At the same time, the energies are different from the substance. In the material sense, this conception is self contradictory, but Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly deals with this aspect of simultaneous oneness and difference. This philosophy is also found in the Vedanta Sutra, beginning with the Janmadhyasya Sutra. Knowledge of the simultaneous oneness and difference found in the absolute truth is imparted for the well being of everyone. Mental speculators mislead people by establishing the energy of the Lord as absolute. But when the truth of simultaneous oneness and difference is understood, the imperfect concepts of monism and dualism cease to satisfy. By understanding the Lord's simultaneous oneness with and difference from His creation, one can immediately attain freedom from the threefold miseries inflicted by the body and mind, by other living entities, and by acts of nature. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the living entity unto the absolute person. This surrender is made with clear consciousness and awareness of the devotee's oneness with the Absolute and at the same time of his eternal position of servitorship. In the material conception, one thinks himself to be the lord of all he surveys. Consequently, he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. As soon as one comes to know his real position in transcendental service, he at once becomes freed from all these miseries. The position of servitor is wasted in the material conception of life. In an attempt to dominate material nature, the living entity is forced to offer his service to relative material energy. When this service is transferred to the Lord in pure consciousness of spiritual identity, the living entity at once becomes free from the encumbrances of material affection. Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is the personal commentary on Vedanta Sutra made by Vyasadeva when he had attained maturity in spiritual realization. He was able to write it by the help of Narada's mercy. Vyasadeva is also an incarnation of Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, there is no question about his authority. Although he is the author of all Vedic literature, he specifically recommends the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. In other Puranas, various methods for worshipping demigods are mentioned, but in Srimad Bhagavatam, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are different parts of that body. Thus, if one worships the Supreme Lord, he need not worship the demigods, for the Supreme Lord is in the hearts of all demigods. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distinguished Srimad Bhagavatam from all other Puranas by recommending it as the spotless Purana. The method by which the transcendental message is received is the method of submissive hearing. A challenging attitude cannot help one receive or realize the transcendental message. Therefore, in the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, the word Shushrushu is used. This word indicates that one should be anxious to hear the transcendental message. The desire to hear with interest is the primary qualification for assimilating transcendental knowledge. Unfortunately, many people are not interested in patiently hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application difficult. Those who are unfortunate will find time to hear ordinary social and political topics, but when they are invited to attend an assembly to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they are reluctant to attend. Sometimes people indulge in hearing portions of Srimad Bhagavatam which they are not prepared to hear. Professional readers of the Bhagavatam indulge in reading the confidential portions dealing with the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. These portions appear to read like sex literature. However, Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning, and those who are fit to assimilate the messages of Bhagavatam are mentioned in the very beginning. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2. A bona fide audience fit to hear Srimad Bhagavatam is generated after many pious deeds. An intellectual person can believe in the assurances of the great sage Vyasadeva and patiently hear the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam in order to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. One need not struggle through the different Vedic stages of realization, for one can be lifted to the position of Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to hear the message of Srimad Bhagavatam with patience. The sages of Naimisharanya told Suta Goswami that they were intensely desirous of understanding Srimad Bhagavatam. They were hearing from Suta Goswami about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they were never satiated by these discussions. People who are really attached to Krishna never want to stop hearing about him. Lord Chaitanya therefore advised Prakashananda Saraswati, always read Srimad Bhagavatam and try to understand each and every verse. Then you will actually understand Brahma Sutra. You say that you are very anxious to study Vedanta Sutra, but you cannot understand Vedanta Sutra without understanding Srimad Bhagavatam. He also advised Prakashananda Saraswati to always chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And by doing so, you will very easily be liberated. After liberation, you will be eligible to achieve the highest goal of life, love of Godhead. The Lord then recited many verses from authoritative scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and Nrsimha Tapani. In particular, he quoted the following verse from Bhagavad Gita: Brahma prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 54. When a person reaches this Brahmabhuta platform, he sees all living entities equally and becomes a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. In the Narasimha Tapani 2.5.16, it is said that when a person is actually liberated, he can understand the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord and thus engage in his devotional service. Lord Chaitanya also quoted a verse from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1, verse 9, in which Shukadev Goswami admits that although he was elevated to the liberated stage and free from the clutches of Maya, he was still attracted by the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. Consequently, he studied Srimad Bhagavatam from his great father, Vyasadeva. Lord Chaitanya also quoted another shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, verse 43, dealing with the Kumaras. When the Kumaras entered the temple of the Lord, they were attracted by the aroma of flowers and tulasi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord with pulp of sandalwood. Simply by smelling the aroma of these offerings, the minds of the Kumaras turned to the service of the Supreme Lord, despite the fact that the Kumaras were already liberated souls. It is stated elsewhere in Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, verse 10, that even if one is a liberated soul and is actually free from material contamination, he can still, without cause, become attracted to the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Thus, God is so attractive, and because he is so attractive, he is called Krishna. In this way, Lord Chaitanya discussed the Atma Rama verse from Srimad Bhagavatam with Prakashananda Saraswati. Lord Chaitanya's admirer, the Maharashtriya Brahmana, related that the Lord explained this verse in 61 different ways. Everyone assembled was very eager to hear the different explanations, different versions of the Atma Rama shloka again. And since they were so eager, Lord Chaitanya again explained the shloka in the same way that he had explained it to Sanatana Goswami. Everyone had heard the explanations of the Atma Rama shloka. Everyone who heard the explanations of the Atma Rama shloka was amazed. Indeed, everyone considered Lord Chaitanya to be none other than Sri Krishna himself. Thus ends chapter 23 of the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, entitled Why Study the Vedanta Sutra. Thank you very much for joining. We shall continue to read from the same book in our next session. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.